Hello, Laramie High School. I am Mr. Eiderdijk. I'm a school counselor here at Laramie High School. And thank you for attending or watching this Financial Aid 101 presentation. Typically, we do this in the theater at our school with an audience. And this year, we're going to do it virtually just so that everyone has the opportunity to watch and attend and get this information. A lot of you might be attending because you're playing our LHS Chase Your Future Goose Chase game, and we really appreciate you playing that. I want to talk a little bit about that actually to start with today. If I can figure out how to go forward, I'm afraid I clicked it too many times. Okay, so typically when we do this financial aid presentation, we've teamed up with Uniwile Federal Credit Union the last 2 years. And they have been an awesome sponsor to Laramie High School and our students. And they are again this year being an awesome sponsor by sponsoring scholarships for 4 of our seniors. They will have 4 scholarships, total value of $2,500 donated to 4 of our seniors. And the way that you can win those scholarships is by playing our LHS Chase Your Future Goose Chase game. All of the seniors should have gotten an email from their school counselor probably about a month ago now with instructions on how to start playing that game and to log into the account and so on. We really highly encourage you to play, not just necessarily to win scholarship money, although that's an awesome reward that you have the opportunity to get, but because the game itself is really set up to help you plan for what comes after high school, whether that's college, whether that's joining the military, whether that's joining the workforce, whatever you're planning on doing after high school. And most of you that are watching this probably are planning on going to college, but the game is really set up to make sure that you're meeting all of the deadlines and expectations to follow through with whatever that plan might be for you. So the game really just entails doing all of the things that you normally should or would be doing your senior year. This year you just have an opportunity to compete against your peers for some money and some other prizes. So all seniors currently are eligible to play and to win. You didn't have to start playing at the beginning of the game. You can start at any time and still win scholarship money and awards throughout the game. And then there's many other prizes. In fact, this Friday, we're giving a prize out to anyone that's enrolled to play the game and has completed at least 1 mission will get a prize this week. But we have prizes donated to us that include gift cards to local restaurants or businesses, LHS swag, and things like that. So it's a really cool opportunity, and I highly encourage you to play the game this year. LHS Chase Your Future, and it's on the Goose Chase app that you can download on the App Store. Okay, moving on. So the first thing I want to talk about today is the cost of education. I think we all are somewhat aware of the fact that colleges, or college in general, is a very expensive investment to make. And we'll actually talk specifically about what kinds of costs you can expect to incur by going to colleges in our region, in our local community, or even outside of our local communities. So first of all, the University of Wyoming, this is directly off of their website. And by the way, you can get this kind of information on any college's website. Will have a cost estimate to attend that school. The easiest way to find that sometimes is just to type into their search bar on their homepage, estimated cost of attendance. And you'll pull something like this up. This is a University of Wyoming direct cost estimate. Direct cost does not include things like books, personal supplies, and things like that. It's more just tuition, fees, and then room and board would also be a part of their direct costs. So you can see that this year they're estimating around $17,000 for direct costs at the University of Wyoming. If we detail into that a little bit more, their total direct and indirect cost estimate is a little over $21,000 for the year. I know I'm speaking to mostly, probably all students from Laramie. And one advantage that students from Laramie have is that this room and board cost of, $10,500 is not absolutely required for you. Obviously, you're going to have to pay for food, whether you're staying in the dorms or not. But as many of you probably know, there's not a requirement for you to live in the dorms your freshman year of college. So that's something that you can kind of, if you stay at home and live with parents for that first year or so, then obviously that's a adjustment that you can make to your estimated cost of attendance at the University of Wyoming. So moving on, this is Laramie County Community Colleges, full direct and indirect cost estimate, $15,000. Again, that includes room and board, which is, a huge portion of that cost estimate. Sorry, I clicked forward. But, tuition and fees alone at LCCC is about $4,500 to attend for the entire school year. So just some things to keep in mind. And as you're calculating the reason that we start here with the cost of attendance at a college is because what we're going to really want to do is calculate the difference between your cost of attendance and the financial aid that you're expecting to receive. And what that difference is called is a gap. And so we want to figure out how to help you cover the gap cost in college, whether that's with scholarship money, grant money, whatever other kinds of financial aid that we can find to help you cover that gap between the cost of attendance and your financial aid that you're receiving. So this is Colorado State University's same direct and indirect cost estimate. This is, by the way, for WUI tuition. So this would be if you're from Laramie and a Wyoming resident and you go to CSU to attend college. So this is not their out-of-state cost estimate. It's actually a reduced rate for students from Wyoming to attend Colorado State. And then Harvard, $80,000. That's their full yearly cost estimate to attend somewhere like Harvard. So yes, ouch, as this baby's finding out, it's a lot of money. College is a lot of money. And if you think about, we're looking at 1 year. So 1 year at a college being as much as $30,000, and you multiply that by however many years it will take you to get your degree in college, that's a lot of money. So why do it? So the reason that it's, I guess that it's still the most common thing that students choose to do after high school is go to college is because in general, it's a really good return on your investment. And I definitely want to talk to the fact that there are lots of ways to really have an awesome career and gain really awesome employment and gain, a really good lifestyle based off of careers that don't necessarily require you to attend college. But for the most part, when we talk in general, your return on your investment is really good if you go to college. And so, the estimates I think are still around $900,000 to $1 million that the average person would earn more than by going and getting a bachelor's degree in college versus had they just got a high school diploma. So I think we're all very aware, and I talk to students in my office every day who want to make me aware of the fact that, hey, some of the richest people in the world didn't finish a college degree, and my favorite musicians didn't go to college, and so on. And certainly there's a lot of examples of that in the world, and there's really amazing opportunities for careers outside of college that pay really, really well and have apprenticeship programs and things like that where you don't actually attend a college where you would actually pay the fees and receive financial aid in the way that we're talking about today. So I'm very aware of those things, and I'm happy to continue to talk to you or your students about the advantages and disadvantages of college for your particular career and interests. So anyways, but in general, I think that there's a ton of data out there that just shows that in general, your employment opportunities and employment earnings and benefits increase dramatically by the level of education that you have obtained, excuse me. So this is an interesting place for this, but again, college is really expensive. So we're going to talk about financial aid and the different types of financial aid. So I'm going to go over grants, scholarships, work study, and loans, all in pretty decent detail here. Grants are free money that you don't have to pay back. So it's similar to scholarships in that it's a amount of money that you are given that you don't have to return, you don't have to pay back. So different from a loan. They're typically need-based as opposed to merit-based, meaning that they're looking at financial need typically to determine whether you would qualify for a grant, as opposed to what was your ACT score or what was your GPA. The most common grant definitely are federal Pell Grants. In fact, that's the only one that I've really talked in great detail about, whether I was working in colleges or with students in high school applying for federal financial aid. The Pell Grant is the most common federal grant money, and it's based primarily just off of a family's income as to whether a student would qualify for Pell Grant money. There are other grants that are very much less common. The Federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant is a grant that's awarded to students based off of very, very high financial need. The education or teach grants, I'll say, are given to students at participating colleges that kind of commit to being a teacher in a community for a certain amount of time. So you might get a grant to complete your education or help pay for your education, and in return, you're committing to be a teacher in a certain community for a certain amount of time. So that would be one that potentially could be, you might be required to pay that money back if you didn't fulfill that commitment. And then Iraq and Afghanistan service grants are awarded to students who have a parent or guardian who died in the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. So those are grants. Scholarships are free money that you don't have to pay back, again, like grants. Most scholarships require you to complete some sort of application and are usually merit-based. So most scholarships have merit as the #1 priority, I guess, within the scholarship, or the #1 criteria that you have to meet within the scholarship. So, for example, you might have to have a certain GPA and a certain ACT score and have taken a certain number of classes in a certain area or something to even qualify to apply to the scholarship or for the scholarship. There are also a lot of scholarships that all include in the merit part of the scholarship a needs-based. So that scholarship might require the FAFSA, or you have to have completed the FAFSA in order to award you the money in the scholarship. Scholarships oftentimes require things like letters of recommendation, personal essays, formal interviews, even things like that. So there's definitely a requirement of some hoops that you need to jump through, or some steps that you need to take to receive a scholarship typically. The most common exception that we all know about is the Hathaway Scholarship. So the Hathaway, although it does have some things that you're required to do to receive the Hathaway, it's not necessarily, I mean, as long as you do that while in high school, you don't have to complete a special application. You don't need to get letters of recommendation. There are no formal interviews for receiving the Hathaway Scholarship. So we'll talk a little bit more here about the Hathaway Scholarship. I won't spend a ton of time on this because we do so much information on this at other times, but there are still 4 levels of the Hathaway Scholarship. The top 2 levels are the 2 levels that require 2 sequenced years. That's probably the most confusing part sometimes about the Hathaway Scholarship is, don't I have to take foreign language for 2 years? Well, you used to, you don't anymore. Now they just require 2 sequenced years of a foreign language or fine arts or vocational or CTE courses. So if you didn't take 2 sequenced years of a world language, and you did take 2 years of, let's say, musical theater, then that is a 2 sequenced years of fine arts. And so there are a lot of different ways that you can still achieve higher levels of the Hathaway Scholarship, having not taken foreign language at this point. So otherwise, there's different levels, and those levels have different criteria based off of your GPA score and your ACT scores that you get when you take the ACT as a junior and so on. And then as far as the top tiers, you're going to have to take 4 years of both math and science, which is a year beyond what is minimally required for graduation. You're advised, and your counselors at the school are definitely pushing most all of you at this point to complete those requirements, those curriculum requirements anyways, because we try to keep all doors open for you, whether you're like, nope, not going to college, definitely not doing it, I have a plan, and it doesn't include college. We don't like to close doors on you or have you close doors on yourself just in case you change your mind at some point. So a lot of times we're encouraging you to take those 4 years of everything anyways, just so that we can ensure that if you do change your mind, for example, the Hathaway, you can change your mind 6 years later and decide to go back to college, and you would still have that Hathaway money available to you. So anyways, the Hathaway Scholarship is a great opportunity. It's automatic money. So if we're looking at the honors level, that's $1,680 a semester that would be automatically given to you if you meet that level of scholarship money. So if we're looking at like a local community college in the state of Wyoming, that's a huge portion of their tuition and fees. It almost covers just about everything with regards to tuition and fees. And as we get further into scholarships and we start to understand what other kinds of automatic scholarships that colleges are offering, we start to realize, okay, well, if I'm an honors level Hathaway Scholarship winner and I go to LCCC, they're going to automatically award me more money just based off of those same criteria that I met for the honors level of the Hathaway. So for example, a student that graduates from Laramie High School has the honors Hathaway Scholarship and goes to a college like LCCC, almost without doubt, they would have their full tuition and fees covered by scholarships automatically without having to apply for anything additional. So anyways, just keep that in mind. When we talked about those numbers at the beginning of this presentation, they're really big numbers, but we have to kind of start subtracting automatic scholarships that you're going to be awarded based off of your performance in high school. So other comments. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, before I actually talk about this slide, I want to move forward a little bit and talk about your scholarship priority list. So how do we determine, I mean, there's so many scholarships out there, and I have this conversation a lot of times with students, and you'll watch these news programs sometimes. I know I've seen several where they're doing an interview with someone who paid for, an Ivy League education by just applying for every possible scholarship that was available or that they came across. And that's definitely possible, but who has the time to go through and just apply for every single scholarship that's offered in the world? I like to use an example. We as school counselors get massive amounts of emails about scholarship opportunities. And one year, I remember this one stuck out. We had an email sent to us from a dentist office in Seattle, Washington that was offering a $500 scholarship nationwide. So anyone in the country that was aware of this scholarship could apply to receive a $500 scholarship from a dentist in Seattle, Washington. And it gave their criteria and how to apply and all that kind of stuff. And I guess the example is there are so many scholarships available, and how do you prioritize what to spend your time applying for and what not to spend your time applying for? And I would not recommend spending your time applying for a $500 scholarship from a dentist office in Seattle. I think there's better ways to spend your time. And I think the first thing that you really want to think about is applying for things with as small of a pool of applicants as possible. So how do I say, instead of a national scholarship that's open to anyone in the country, that's a $500 award and they only give one scholarship, how do I lessen that pool? How do I make this pool of applicants that I'm competing for that money against smaller? And so my recommended list of priorities kind of goes like this. I recommend beginning with your chosen college's general scholarship application. So start there. Complete a college's, every college is going to have kind of a donor scholarship application. So the reason that that's where I would recommend starting is it's a small pool of applicants, right? Because it's just students that are attending that particular school, and that money is awarded to just students that are either attending that school or maybe majoring in a particular major that you're majoring in, or have a particular ethnicity or background that you have, or something like that. So those scholarship funds are donated by foundations and people to, let's say I was a really successful person, and I had gone to the University of Wyoming and completed a degree in anthropology, and I wanted to give back to that school. Well, I could set up a scholarship fund with that school's financial aid office that just says, hey, I want first generation female students majoring in anthropology to have the opportunity to win this scholarship award. And so it can be as small as that, or as big as it's open to anyone applying to, your institution. So I recommend starting there. Also, the reason I would start there is there's a lot of times priority deadlines on those kinds of scholarships that aren't necessarily applied towards a lot of other local community scholarships and things like that. So those priority deadlines just mean that, hey, maybe you have to submit this application by January 1st, whereas another one might have later deadlines. The next thing I would do, and I'm going to kind of walk through, I'm going to hope to share another screen with you all, but I want to walk through our website. We have a scholarship page where we put a lot of our local, regional, common scholarships for LHS students on there, and try to keep that updated. As I talked about previously, we get a lot of emails from scholarship committees and donors that want to offer scholarships. And so this is where we kind of determine what's worthwhile in putting on our website, so that it's not just this crazy amount of things that are available to you to see, but just more of the most common scholarships that are awarded to our students. So I'm going to walk you through, after I do this list, I'll hopefully share that screen and show you where that's at on our website. That's next, because local, regional, common scholarships for LHS students, that just means, hey, this is an Albany County Commissioner Scholarship, right? And it's just available to students in Albany County that are graduating from Albany County High School. So that's Laramie High School, Whiting High School, and Rock River High School. That's a smallest pool of students that you could probably get. So those are the ones that I would recommend looking at first. They're also very, if you look at the common scholarships for LHS students page, those are scholarships that LHS students are awarded every year. So they're things that I highly recommend that you look at if you're looking for scholarship. After you've done that, then the next thing I look at is, your family and you as a person are affiliated with all sorts of institutions, like your financial institution or your insurance company or your parents' employer, or a religious, organization that you're a part of or affiliated with. A lot of times those agencies, institutions offer awards or scholarships to students graduating from high school and going to college. So call up your family's insurance agency and see, or check out their website and see if they have scholarships. Uniwild Federal Credit Union, who's sponsoring our awards this year, and this presentation is they have scholarships available to students attending the University of Wyoming. So I'm sure many other financial institutions do as well. I know that there are, there's a softball scholarship. So if you participated in softball here in Laramie, they usually offer a scholarship. So think about those things when you're looking at small pools of applicants to apply for scholarships with. And then lastly, as we kind of start to think about filling that gap between what I owe, what I need to pay for college and what's owed to college, is excuse me, checking out the national scholarship resources. And those are going to be larger pools, and there's all sorts of different sites. In fact, the last slide, I'll go back to that now. These are just some of those. We also have all of these sites and links to them on our website under the scholarships page. But they're going to be, they would be the last priority for me, just because there's so many scholarships out there, and it can become overwhelming to even think about where to start with some of these sites. But they are good sites, and they do award scholarships. So they're not jokes, they're not unreal scholarships, they're legitimate scholarships that are on these sites that get awarded every year. It's just that they're offered to a huge number of students. So what you'll typically do, for example, FastWeb is going to have you fill out, when you set up an account, it's going to have you start by filling out kind of a demographics page that's going to ask you some questions about what your plans are in college, what your background is in high school, and so on. And then it's going to start kind of sending you scholarships that you're eligible to apply for based off of your answers on some of those questions. So that's typically how these work. Some work very differently. I talked about juniors earlier, so things like Raise Me is a site that actually you can do things while in high school, certain kind of challenges that they award you money for completing. And then that money can be used at a college post high school. So that's how those things work. I'm going to go ahead and try to share this screen. Bear with me real quick as I. Okay, so after watching the video previously, I tried to share a screen with in the presentation that didn't work. So I'm going to re-record this on a different day, hence the different clothes. I was kind of talking about our website and scholarships on our website and how to find some of the scholarships that we receive and where we house those. So if you go to the Laramie High School homepage, which is just acsd1.org/LHS, click on counseling here at the top of the page. And then you'll see scholarships right over here. There's a little box for that. Click on that. It's going to walk you through a little bit of information, kind of what we've been talking about as far as prioritizing scholarships and what to apply for first and so on. There's a really good video here put on by the Khan Academy about searching for scholarships. And then we have Hathaway scholarship information, links directly to all of the Wyoming College scholarship application pages, and then common scholarships, local and regional, and the national scholarships. So we'll click on common scholarships here real quick. I just want to highlight a couple of these. The Albany County Commissioners is the very top of the page here. That's a scholarship only available to graduating seniors in Albany County. So Laramie High School, Whiting High School, and Rock River High School would be the only students able to apply for those scholarships. They usually give 3 of those out every year. And I know in previous years, recent years actually, they haven't had enough applicants. So they've had to kind of open the scholarship up for great amounts of time to just get to the 3 applicants that they want to award scholarships to. So that's where, you know, that's another story that comes to mind is I remember when I first went to the University of Wyoming, my parents made me sit down with a financial aid advisor over at the University of Wyoming. And I remember the first thing that she would talk about was, here is a scholarship that we haven't been able to award year after year because no one has applied for it. And so don't let scholarships that are out there go unapplied for. There's money that just sits there and builds up because no one applies for the scholarship. A couple others on this page that I want to highlight, the Daniels Fund Scholarship. That's one, if you're applying for the Daniels Fund, hopefully you've already started that application. It's due the 1st of November. It's a scholarship that covers the entire cost of college, room, board, tuition fees, everything, and some for like supplies and computers and things like that. So huge scholarship, only available to students in a couple of states in our region. And it's one that students from Laramie High School win on a regular basis or awarded on a regular basis. So there is a need base to the Daniels Fund as well as a merit requirement for that scholarship, but definitely something to look into. And then the other thing on this page is the Pathaway Scholarship. So anyone that's thinking about going to school outside of the state of Wyoming and won't be able to use the Hathaway Scholarship, the Pathaway is a great opportunity to get some money based off of those same requirements that the Hathaway Scholarship has as far as GPA and ACT score and curriculum requirements in high school. So check those out. I'll go back to the main scholarship page here. Local and regional scholarships is, again, it's going to be a little bit broader. Some of these are available just to Laramie students. Some of them are available just to Wyoming students and so on, but all worth looking into before you start really kind of diving into the national scholarship resources and sites. And I don't want to downplay, I mean, when I say these are the lowest on my priority list, it would mean I would definitely look at those other scholarships first, or, you know, the pools for those other scholarships are very much smaller than the pools for these scholarships. Having said that, though, some of these scholarships are huge. Some of them are cover full college costs and full college tuition. So things like, just looking at this quick list here, the Questbridge Scholarship. We've had students at Laramie High School receive the Questbridge Scholarship and get an Ivy League tuition paid for fully by that scholarship. And if you remember, when we looked at the Harvard costs, that's about $80,000 a school year, potentially, that's covered by a scholarship like this. So definitely not something to just ignore, but maybe not the first step to looking at scholarship money. And then those other national scholarship resource sites are down here at the bottom. We try to keep this updated as we get new scholarships and kind of vet whether it's something that's worthwhile to have on our website. Most of these links are to their actual scholarship page or HTML address. So most of these are links to specific addresses that the scholarship runs. And so some of them you might click on right now and you'll notice, like, I think if you click on the Albany County Commissioner Scholarship right now, the link is, there's no scholarship application available yet, because that's a scholarship that's not due usually until late or middle of the spring semester. So a lot of times that's something that you'll consider in March or even April sometimes. So if you click on the link and you don't see an application there, usually that just means it's not available yet. So always feel free, if you have a question about any of the information that's housed on the website here, to definitely let your school counselor know. And as you know, I'm just going to put another plug in for this game that we're playing. Please play the game. It's going to kind of walk you through some of these steps of looking at different scholarship opportunities that might be available to you, and also to come meet with your school counselor so that we can help you directly with a plan that applies directly to you. Here's another thing that's really important to think about when it comes to things that are competitive, right? Whether that's a college application, if it's a competitive college and they don't accept everyone that applies, which, by the way, you know, all the community colleges in Wyoming, and I'm pretty sure most community colleges around the country, they're open enrollment. So they don't care what your ACT score was, they don't care what your GPA was. If you want to attend college, that's a great place to start, no matter what those things were. But scholarships are all going to be somewhat competitive, right? They're not going to be awarded to everyone that applies. So these are just some keys or things to think about when it comes to setting yourself up to be successful in getting scholarships and ultimately maybe getting admitted to a competitive college. Course strength, I put that as number one, actually. I don't know that these are numbered necessarily, but course strength is more important than I think a lot of times students think it is. A lot of times we're so focused on my test score or my GPA that I don't think about the strength of the courses or the rigor of the courses that I'm choosing to take. I know that for me, any student that's really been admitted into a really competitive college that was on my caseload as a school counselor typically didn't have a 4.0 GPA because they were taking very rigorous courses. And, certainly you can take very rigorous courses and have a 4.0 GPA, but oftentimes we definitely have students in the high school that are taking a more rigorous course load than some students do in college because they're taking multiple AP classes and multiple dual enrollment classes and so on, that becomes a factor. And I think that looks really good when you're applying for some competitive scholarships, that you've taken some college level courses or taken, not the easiest classes available to you to take. ACT and SAT scores, again, those are usually interchangeable at most colleges. Certainly in Wyoming, you have to have the ACT in order to get the Hathaway scholarship. So we have every junior here take the ACT, but those scores do play a role. Some demonstrated interest in the particular major or the particular college or the particular scholarship fund is important, or whatever that mission is of that fund is important. And I think that usually comes across through your essays and just the thoroughness of your application answers. Recommendation letters, a lot of scholarships ask for 3 letters of recommendation, and those can be from family members or things like that. So you want to think about who to get that recommendation letter from. And the biggest advice I have on that is just making sure that you ask. I think that, here at Laramie High School, a lot of times students ask the teacher that they think they took the most rigorous course from, which is oftentimes a good thing to do. But I also think that you need to consider who has some really good personal experience or stories that they can tell to make your letter a little bit more, I guess, full. The best letters are always those that have kind of a personal story about a student that can really make the letter more entertaining, and it's not just because kind of like generic, this is their awesome GPA, this is how awesome they are in class, but there's more to it than that. So think about who knows you best, and that it might not have been the hardest class that you took in high school, but maybe there was something that you learned about that class, through that experience in that class, or something that really kind of changed your direction or trajectory forward. So GPA, extracurricular activities, and then essays are all usually key components to these applications as well. Work study. So work study is something that when we talk about the FAFSA, which we'll do here in a minute, but work study is another type of financial aid, and you have to select that it's something that you would be interested in. And I think the biggest thing that I want to share here is select yes. You're interested in work study programs, even if you don't end up fulfilling that or getting a work study position. You usually can't do work study, or you won't be eligible to do work study jobs on a college campus if you don't select yes on your FAFSA. So make sure that's something that you select just to give yourself that opportunity. But usually these are jobs that are offered to students on college campuses where the job actually helps pay your tuition. Work is typically on campus and you receive money through a paycheck. So there's certain jobs on college campuses that are only work study jobs. So you can't necessarily get that job unless you are a work study student, because the funding for those positions comes through your federal funding for that school. So for example, myself in college, I had a sweet job where I would work in a computer lab. I would get paid to do it. I would get paid to sit there and do my homework. And the responsibilities of the job were very low, just kind of make sure the printer was up and running, change the paper and the ink, and help with any questions that students had as they were using those computer labs. But usually a lot of these jobs are very, I don't know, there's not a whole lot of responsibility, I guess, and there's a lot of time that you're allowed to use for completing schoolwork or studying or things like that. Federal student loans. So I'm definitely going to spend some time on this, but that's another type of financial aid, and we're all probably very aware of federal student loans and the problem that they can cause students throughout the rest of their life. If they take out a lot of student loans, they're oftentimes paying those things off for a very long time. And so loans is always, anytime we think about taking money that we have to pay back, that's definitely going to be the lower priority on our list. So we want to look at grant money. We want to look at scholarships and cover as much cost by those things as we can before we look at student loans. The biggest caution I have about student loans is that it's unlike any other kind of loan that you can really go and get. So if you were going to go buy a car today and you got a loan to pay for that car, the bank is probably going to send you a bill to start paying on that loan next month, or at least within the next few months. So you're going to know every month, you're going to get reminded, oh yeah, this is how much I owe. Oh yeah, I have to pay this amount every month. Oh yeah, that new car smells really great, but man, it kind of sucks that I have to pay this much money every month. So you're reminded of that on a regular basis. And the thing about student loans is that's not often the case. So you're not getting a bill because you usually defer your payments until you're done with school. And that could be 4 years, that could be 6 years, or even more, that you're thinking, okay, I have all this huge amount of debt accumulating potentially, but I'm not paying it yet. And there's a reason for that, is because, well, you're investing this money and this time in something so that you can actually get a job that hopefully helps you pay those things off in the future. But it can sit there. It can sit there, and I always kind of think about it as it's just kind of behind me in this corner over here, accumulating, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'm not having to really chip away at it like I would another loan. So it's just important to be careful anytime you're taking out a loan for any reason, but especially student loans. As far as federal student loans, which we're talking about right now, these would be student loans that you would qualify for through the FAFSA, that would be federally funded loans. These are better typically than like getting a loan through your financial institution, through a bank, or certainly better than doing something like a credit card loan or something like that. So the interest rates are lower, they have better payoff plans and things like that. There are federal direct loans, so you want to definitely take those out first before you would do a direct plus loan or anything like that. In addition, subsidized loans are better than unsubsidized loans. Subsidized loans have the interest is covered by the Department of Education or the government while you're in school. So the interest isn't accumulating, it's being paid. Whereas unsubsidized loans, you're covering that interest while you're in school. So that would be one where you're actually paying the interest for that loan while you are in school. Federal direct plus loans are things that parents can take out in addition to the federal direct loans to help additionally supplement the cost of your education. Parents, just remember that those fall on you as to cover the payment of those loans instead of your child typically. So just keep that in mind. So this is kind of where we hear about this a lot, but we all have examples of people that have been paying on their student loans for a long time. And I do want to talk a little bit about how to kind of prevent yourself from paying for student loans 50 years from now. So we will do that after we talk a little bit here about the FAFSA.
If you're interested in financial aid for college or career school, you're going to need to fill out the free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA. It takes most people about 30 minutes to complete online, and the best part, it's 100% free, and it provides you with access to grants, loans, and work-study funds from the federal government. And many colleges and states use FAFSA information to provide their own college or state financial aid. Before you fill out the FAFSA, it's a good idea to create your FSA ID, a username and password that lets you electronically sign your FAFSA and gives you access to various websites related to federal student aid. And here's an important tip. If your parent is providing information on your FAFSA, he or she will need his or her own FSA ID. Visit studentaid.gov/FSA ID for more information. Your FAFSA can be completed online at fafsa.gov, and help is provided throughout the online application process. You will need to fill out the FAFSA each year you are in school because your financial situation may change. Plus, you may be able to automatically transfer your tax data from the IRS, making the application even quicker to fill out. Each state and college or career school sets its own deadline for the FAFSA, so it's best to get it done early. Since some of the funds are available on a first-come, first-served basis, you don't want to miss out. Now that you know about the FAFSA, you might be asking, well, how much money will I get? Your college or career school will do the math, and there's a simple formula that they use. First, the college takes your cost of attendance, which is the total amount it will cost you to go to that school. Your cost of attendance will vary from school to school. Then, the college subtracts your expected family contribution, or EFC. Your EFC is based on information provided in your FAFSA and will not change based on the school you attend. However, the EFC is not necessarily the amount of money you will have to pay. Basically, your cost of attendance minus your EFC equals your financial need. Your college uses your financial need and other information to determine how much financial aid you can receive. See? Pretty simple. If you have questions or need more information, please visit studentaid.gov.
Okay, and that studentaid.gov website, by the way, is really helpful. They have a lot of little short video clips like that, but also just kind of helps detail all of these different types of federal financial aid that are available to students. The FAFSA, like the video said, stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. There are a lot of scam sites out there, so just make sure that when you're filling out the application that it is free, and that you're using the correct web address to fill that out. It's actually available now. We want students to be completing their FAFSA as soon as possible, just to make sure that you have every opportunity for financial aid available to you. There are deadlines at colleges, like we talked about with different scholarships and stuff, that if you haven't completed your FAFSA early, you might not be eligible for those different scholarships. So do that as soon as you can. The FAFSA is something that you do every year. Every year in college, you'll do a renewal FAFSA to kind of update your information. And most LHS students will be considered dependents and will need their parents' help to complete the FAFSA information. To determine that expected family contribution, the FAFSA will oftentimes need your parent, it will definitely need your parents' tax information and things like that. You'll sit down and do it. The good news about the FAFSA is I've done a couple of these with students already this year, and it seems to have, the application itself seems to be a lot easier to get through, and it's not nearly as cumbersome and so on as it's been in the past. So I've been able to finish one in 15 to 20 minutes this year. So it's been pretty quick. There will be some exceptions to that dependent status. So if you have a dependent yourself, so if you have a child while in high school, or you were in foster care in high school, or you were homeless in high school, and at some point, then you can potentially not be considered a dependent of your parents, even if those situations have changed for you, and you can fill out the FAFSA differently. So just talk to your school counselor with any questions about any of that. We talked about applying early, and some of these priority deadlines. And the scholarships, there are a lot of scholarships that do require you to complete the FAFSA, because we talked about scholarships being primarily merit-based, but there's a lot of times kind of a marriage between merit and need-based eligibility requirements for a different scholarship, and the Daniels Fund is one of those. So if you are applying for the Daniels Fund, hopefully you've already done your FAFSA, but if not, do that really as soon as you can. Some of that interesting terminology, the SAR, the EFC, expected family contribution is the big thing. You're at the end of your FAFSA, it's going to give you a number, of an expected family contribution towards your education. And just know that sometimes that number is frustrating, because you know that you're paying for college on your own, and your parents have already told you they're not going to help. So why is the government telling me that my family's supposed to pay $3,000 a semester or a year towards my education? That's just kind of what they call that number to determine your eligibility for different kinds of aid. So the higher your expected family contribution number is, the less eligibility you'll have probably for free grant money and things like that. The lower your expected family contribution, the higher your eligibility will be for those things. And then an institutional student information record. Just know that financial aid is something that's shared between colleges, and so they store your information on financial aid between colleges to determine your eligibility, whether you've stay at one college for your entire college career, or you transfer to different institutions. So this is pretty small. Hopefully you can see it, but it's a sample of what an award letter from a college might look like. And so they're kind of distributing the cost between, well, they're delineating between the estimated cost of attendance, excuse me, at that college, and the financial aid that they're offering you up to that point. And so, you know, the financial aid will be listed out in different scholarships, grants, loans, and then the cost of attendance, leaving you with a total estimated balance that you would either need to find more financial aid to cover, or you would need to pay for. So the one thing I want to mention here is a lot of times you'll receive an award letter from a college and you'll be able to go through and accept or deny any kinds of awards that are being offered to you. This is a very common mistake that students make in college, is that this is a mistake I made, I'll be honest. So they send you an award letter and it's like, okay, I'm getting this much in this scholarship money and this much in this scholarship money. And then you'll see on the loan part, well, this is what they're offering me in direct subsidized loans and direct unsubsidized loans. And oh, great, I'm going to take all of that. And you can do that. If you need to do that, you can do that. But you definitely don't have to do that. You can deny and not take any loan money out, or you can take a partial amount out. And I would recommend really considering that number that they're offering you and really consider what you need and only take that what you need. Because it's really easy to just click a box and say, I'm going to take all of this. And then that's what builds that huge pile of debt up, is that you're just taking more than you probably need just to pay for college. So consider that when you're being offered that award letter and completing it. So this is kind of just a graphic on you know, the value-based approach to financial aid. We've talked about a lot of this, but there are, you know, the first thing we want to consider is anything that's free money, money that doesn't need to be paid back. So that would be grants and scholarships. Then cheaper money, so good interest rates, good loans, and those would be the federal direct loans. And then the gap is what's not covered maybe by those things. And that's where we need to look at other opportunities for money. And those, you know, there's a lot of ways that you can do that through private loans. One thing that's not often considered is colleges usually offer payment plans for students to pay throughout the school year. So it's not just one big lump sum of, you know, I owe $8,000 to the college. You can usually spread that out for that school year. And so consider covering that gap cost by getting a job, doing work study for job, things like that, that you can cover the cost of that gap without having to dip into more different kinds of loans or different kinds of accounts. There's 529 savings plans that parents have set up sometimes for their students to help pay for college. Parents can also take out other kinds of loans through insurance or home equity or life insurance or whatever to help pay for college. Some of those are good and some of those aren't great. Let's see, we'll talk a little bit more about this. I want to talk specifically about work. 70% of students do work at some time while attending college. I think it's a good idea for many reasons, because it helps cover that gap. Sometimes it can cover the entire gap. Sometimes you can work a summer job somewhere and cover most of the cost of your gap that you have in college. And there's a lot of part-time jobs just only available to students on college campuses. It also allows you an opportunity for relevant work experience. I know I see a lot of students come in to my office, ask me for letters of recommendation. And although they've done all sorts of things while in high school, work experience is sometimes something that's lacking and they haven't had. And it's just nice to kind of build that into your resume, that you've had a job, you've had a boss, you've been responsible for more than just your education and all that kind of stuff. So I think work is, I'm a huge proponent of working while in college if it's possible. The other thing that you can think about is, and this just came to mind, but you know, when I was doing my undergraduate degree, I would find lab work to do in colleges. You know, I majored in certain areas. I majored in chemistry and would try and find lab work to do where I could be a part of the lab. A lot of times those things are volunteer, you know, things that you can do to kind of expand your opportunities for growth in that particular field, or just to become more well-rounded in what you're learning about. But some of those positions are paid, so check into that as an opportunity as well. We've talked a little bit about some of these. I'm not going to go into those. I just really want to kind of highlight the fact that these are really bad ways for filling the gap. Jumping into a retirement account to pay for your students' tuition is not a good idea. And credit cards are usually really high interest rate, really bad ways of paying for something like college that's going to be extended out for a long period of time. So I think this is getting close to being the last thing that we'll talk about a little bit during this presentation, but it's important to remember that in order to continue to receive financial aid, there are certain expectations that are set up to do that. And as far as federal student aid goes, they have of course a nice little acronym again: satisfactory academic progress. And there's several criteria that you need to maintain your satisfactory academic progress, and therefore maintain the financial aid that you're receiving. So typically it includes GPA requirements, so you have to keep your GPA above a certain level to keep that financial aid. A completion rate, so you can't start out the semester by taking a certain number of classes and then drop almost all of them. So usually it's 75%, I think, for your federal aid, things like student loans and student grants and stuff like that. So if you take 12 credits at the beginning of the semester, you need to complete at least 8 of those at the end successfully. And then maximum credits allowed, that's where I kind of talked a little bit about colleges talking to each other a little bit. So there are degree status requirements or degree requirements as far as number of credits that you can obtain before they cut you off of financial aid for that degree. So, an associate's degree has a certain number of credits that you can take before they say, no, you need to have been done with this degree and we're not going to allow you to receive that financial aid anymore. I don't know exactly what those numbers are now. I think typically a bachelor's degree is going to be around 120 or more credits. And so they're probably going to shut you off when you hit, 150-ish credits or something. They're going to say, nope, you need to, move on to a master's program or something, or else we're not going to be able to offer you financial aid anymore. Some, especially scholarships, have other requirements like thank you letters. It might be a requirement to receive that scholarship that you submit a thank you letter to the donor, and if you don't do that, then they might not offer that scholarship to you again. You might need to attend meetings on a regular basis to attend a scholarship or to receive a scholarship, and then there might be all additional requirements like volunteer requirements and things like that. So just make sure that you are aware of whatever requirements that scholarship that is awarded to you has. It's not uncommon at all for a student to not receive a scholarship again because they just didn't follow up with something simple like a thank you letter. And so I love this graphic because it's a GIF, I guess. I love this because scholarships, financial aid in general, there's a lot of information. And so I just want everyone that's watching this to be aware that we realize that most of this is new to a lot of students. So we are here to help you through all of this. So if you don't remember anything from what I'm saying today, please just know that, okay, I can go and make an appointment with my school counselor, and they'll make a plan specifically with me to make sure I'm meeting all my deadlines and I'm getting everything applied for that I can apply for. We have a couple slides that were submitted by both Laramie County Community College and the University of Wyoming that we asked them, they're usually a part of this presentation, and we asked them to share a slide. And the biggest thing I want to talk about with this slide is at the beginning of the presentation, I talked about automatic scholarships. And you'll notice on here, so the upper tier of the Hathaway, the Honors Hathaway requires, nope, I did it again, sorry, a 3.5 GPA. And it awards you about $1,600, a little more than $1,600 a semester to use at a college. And LCCC has presidential and dean scholarships based off of your high school GPA, and these are automatic scholarships as well. So basically, as long as you graduate from high school with a 3.5 to 4.0 GPA, you would get $1,600 per year to attend LCCC, and then half of that if you have a 3.0 to 3.49. So most colleges have something like this. The University of Wyoming definitely does. So just make sure that you know when you're kind of calculating, okay, how much time do I need to spend on this or this or this? What kinds of awards you're going to automatically be awarded. Their donor scholarship application, so there's the application that's available on their website for those other kinds of scholarships doesn't open until December 1st. So just something else to know about them. The University of Wyoming applications are open right now, by the way, for all colleges. So that's definitely something that our Chase Your Future game has already kind of given that as a mission to go ahead and apply for colleges. You can apply for the University of Wyoming both on their websites or on the Common App. UW is a test optional for admissions school, which means you don't have to have the ACT or SAT score to apply, but you do have to have it for the Hathaway Scholarship. And that covers, that's across the board at any college in Wyoming. The Hathaway Scholarship is going to require you to take the ACT. So just know, excuse me, if you didn't take the ACT last year because we were all in quarantine and you haven't signed up yet for it this year, that we need to get you signed up so that you have that score available. If you want to be considered for the Hathaway Trustee Scholars Award or any other UW scholarship, you must submit those scores. And just FYI, the Trustee Scholarship Award at the University of Wyoming is something that you need to apply early to the University of Wyoming for. That's their full ride academic award based off of high school merit and some other factors. But you need to have already probably submitted your application for UW. And if you hadn't, we need to do that really soon for you. UW Board of Trustees will make a decision on their UW scholarships in November. So that's why it's really important that you've applied early for that. Continue to check your email and the admissions website for up-to-date information. And then lastly, there's just some contact information for both Miss Shelley Dodd and Christy Oliver, the Director and Associate Director of Admissions at UW. They're great to work with, so feel free to contact them about any questions that you may have. And then lastly, UNOWYO is a great sponsor for our students here at Laramie High School. Again, they are offering the scholarship money to our students for playing this game this year. They've already donated a whole bunch of other prizes like restaurant gift cards and things like that for our students, and make some really, really cool swag, LHS swag for us. So they're a great partner. If you don't already have a financial institution that you're working with, they wanted me to let you know that they pay for good grades, so you can get paid for good grades while in high school and start kind of building up some account money to help pay for scholarships. They do offer scholarships to UW that you apply for through the UW financial aid scholarship application page, and they also have private student loans. So again, that's the lowest. The last thing that I would do to cover college costs is to go to a bank or a credit union or any other financial institution to cover those costs. But if that's what you need to do to be able to pay for college, that would be, the last step after you've done everything else as far as scholarship applications elsewhere and federal loans and stuff like that. So anyways, I hope this was informative. It's really difficult and awkward to give a presentation when you're just staring at yourself in your office. So I hope I didn't miss too much, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has, along with all of the other school counselors here at Laramie High School. So please contact us anytime that you have a question. We would love to meet with all of you about what your plans are for after high school and your financial aid plan specifically. So hope everyone's well, and thank you for listening.